Have you ever wondered why you can give so much to others and still feel empty inside? You offer your time, your patience, your attention, and sometimes even the last of your emotional strength. You try to be understanding. You try to keep the peace. You try to make everyone around you feel safe and loved. Yet when the day becomes quiet, you may notice a deeper truth waiting beneath all that effort. You have been giving from a place that is tired, wounded, and longing to receive the very things you are trying to offer. Perhaps you have tried to give love while secretly believing you were unworthy of love. Perhaps you have tried to offer forgiveness while still carrying the weight of an old betrayal. Perhaps you have asked for peace in your relationships while living with a storm of fear inside your own mind. You may have believed that if you could make others happy, they would finally give you the security, appreciation, or tenderness you have been missing. But what happens when they do not? What happens when your kindness is not returned, when your efforts are misunderstood, or when someone you love remains distant? The mind may begin to ask painful questions. Why am I never enough? Why do I always give more than I receive? Why does peace seem so close for everyone else and so far away from me? These questions do not mean that something is wrong with you. They may simply be invitations to look in a new direction. Instead of asking why the world has not given you what you need, you might gently ask what you have been carrying within yourself. You cannot consistently give away what you do not have. You cannot pour clear water from a cup filled with bitterness. You cannot offer another person a peaceful presence while fighting a silent war against yourself. You cannot give genuine acceptance if your inner voice is constantly telling you that you must change before you are worthy. This does not mean you must become perfect before you can love anyone. It does not mean you should withdraw from others until every wound has healed. It simply means that the quality of what flows through you is shaped by the place it comes from. Imagine a garden that has been neglected for many seasons. The gardener may continue gathering flowers for everyone else, but eventually the soil becomes dry, the roots weaken. The garden cannot keep giving what it has not been allowed to receive. It needs water. It needs sunlight. It needs quiet care. Your inner world is much the same. There may be a part of you that has been waiting for your attention. Not your criticism, not another demand to improve, just your attention. The anxious part that is afraid of being abandoned. The exhausted part that has spent years pleasing others. The wounded part that still remembers what was said, what was lost, or what never arrived. These parts are not obstacles to your spiritual life. They are doorways into it. When you meet them with awareness instead of judgment, something begins to soften. You stop treating yourself as a problem that must be fixed and begin recognizing yourself as a living expression of the same source that gives life to the trees, the rivers, the stars, and every beating heart. The peace you have been searching for may not be something another person can hand to you. It may already be present beneath the noise of your thoughts, waiting like the sky behind passing clouds. The clouds may be fear, resentment, comparison, or regret. They may seem powerful, but they do not change the nature of the sky. In the same way, your painful experiences have not changed the deepest truth of who you are. Beneath the roles you have played and the approval you have chased, there is a quiet presence within you. It does not need to prove its worth. It does not compete. It does not beg to be chosen. It simply is. You may have forgotten this presence because the world taught you to look outward. It taught you to measure your value through attention, achievement, appearance, usefulness, and praise. It taught you to believe that love must be earned and peace must be protected by controlling everything around you. Yet control rarely creates peace. It only creates more fear of losing control. You may try to control how others see you, how they speak to you, whether they stay, whether they understand, or whether they give back what you have given. But another person's behavior is not where your freedom lives. Your freedom begins in the moment you become aware of what is happening within you without allowing it to define you. Awareness creates space. In that space, you can notice resentment without becoming resentment. You can feel fear without allowing fear to choose your next step. You can recognize the desire for approval without abandoning yourself to receive it. This is where the journey begins, not by changing everyone around you, but by returning to the source of what you bring into every room, every conversation, and every relationship. When love is cultivated within, it no longer feels like a bargain. When peace is cultivated within, it no longer depends entirely on circumstances. When forgiveness is cultivated within, the past begins to loosen its grip. Perhaps the deeper question is not what am I receiving from the world, perhaps it is what am I carrying into the world, and what might become possible when you finally begin giving yourself the love, acceptance, and peace you have been waiting for others to provide. To understand what you are carrying into the world, it may help to become familiar with the voice that has been shaping so much of your inner life. It is the voice that says you are not safe unless everything goes according to plan. It tells you that you must be approved of, understood, admired, or needed. It warns you that if someone rejects you, your worth has been reduced. It compares your path with the lives of others and then quietly concludes that you are behind. This is often the voice of the ego. The ego is not an enemy that must be destroyed. It is simply the part of the mind that believes you are separate from everyone and everything around you. It sees life as a struggle for identity, attention, security, and control. Because it feels separate, it is always looking for something outside itself to make it feel complete. The ego may say, I will be peaceful when this situation changes. I will feel worthy when this person chooses me. I will be happy when I am finally understood. I will be free when the past has been corrected. But life does not always cooperate with these conditions. People misunderstand you. Plans change. Relationships shift. Bodies age. Opportunities pass. The future remains uncertain. And when peace depends on controlling all these things, peace becomes almost impossible to experience. You may recognize this in something as simple as waiting for a message from someone you care about. The phone remains silent, and within a few minutes the mind begins creating a story. Perhaps they are losing interest. Perhaps you said something wrong. Perhaps you are being ignored. The body tightens. The heart becomes restless. You may check the screen repeatedly, not because the phone has changed, but because you are hoping the next glance will quiet the fear within you. The emotional struggle is not only the unanswered message, it is the meaning the ego gives to the silence. The ego turns a moment of uncertainty into evidence that you are unwanted. Awareness offers another way of seeing. You might notice the fear without immediately believing its story. You might gently say, there is anxiety here. There is a part of me that wants reassurance, but this feeling is not the whole of who I am. In that small moment of awareness, you stop demanding that another person rescue you from your inner discomfort. You begin offering yourself the presence you were waiting to receive. The phone may still be silent, but something within you is no longer abandoned. This is how inner freedom often begins, not with the disappearance of uncertainty, but with a new relationship to it. Fear becomes especially powerful when it joins with attachment. Attachment says, this must happen in this particular way, or I cannot be at peace. It may attach itself to a relationship, an outcome, a role, an image of the future, or even an old identity. You may be attached to being the person who always holds the family together. You may believe you must solve every conflict, carry everyone's emotions, and prevent anyone from being disappointed. On the surface, this can appear loving, but beneath it may be a fear that if you stop being useful, you will stop being valued. So you keep giving. You say yes when your heart is asking for rest. You hide your needs because you do not want to seem difficult. You absorb other people's pain and call it compassion, even when it leaves you resentful and exhausted. Eventually, something inside you begins to protest. You may become impatient with the very people you wanted to help. You may feel unseen and taken for granted. You may wonder why no one notices how much you are carrying. Yet perhaps they cannot see what you have never allowed yourself to express. The new perspective is not that you should stop caring. It is that love does not require self-abandonment. Giving from love feels different from giving from fear. Love can say yes, and love can also say no. Love can support another person without taking responsibility for their entire life. Love can remain kind without becoming invisible. When you begin respecting your own limits, you are not withholding love. You are allowing love to come from a more honest place. A tree does not apologize for needing sunlight. It does not give away every branch until nothing remains. It stays rooted in the earth, receives what nourishes it, and then offers shade naturally. Its giving is an expression of its fullness, not a punishment for existing. You, too, are allowed to remain rooted. The ego also seeks control because control creates the temporary illusion of safety. You may rehearse conversations before they happen, imagining every possible response. You may replay conversations afterward, wondering what you should have said. You may try to predict how people will behave so you can avoid disappointment. This kind of overthinking can feel like preparation, but often it is fear wearing the mask of responsibility. The mind says, if I think about this long enough, I can prevent pain. Yet some pain cannot be prevented through thought. Some uncertainty cannot be solved in advance. Some people will make choices you do not understand. Life will continue moving like a river, even when you are trying to hold the water still. You might ask yourself what all this mental effort is protecting. Is it protecting your peace, or is it postponing it? There is a great difference between responding wisely to life and trying to control life. Wisdom pays attention to what can be done in the present moment. Control becomes lost in what may happen tomorrow, what should have happened yesterday, and what everyone else ought to do. Awareness gently returns you to what is here. Right now you can breathe. Right now you can notice the tension in your body. Right now you can release the argument you are having with someone who is not even in the room. Right now you can ask whether the thought you are repeating is bringing you closer to love or deeper into fear. You do not have to force the mind into silence. You can simply stop following every thought as though it were a command. Thoughts are much like clouds moving across the sky. Some are light and passing, others are dark and heavy, but the sky does not chase them away. It allows them to move. Your awareness is like that sky. It is spacious enough to hold fear without becoming fear. The ego does not want you to remember this space because it survives through identification. It wants you to say, I am anxious, rather than I am aware of anxiety. It wants you to say, I am rejected, rather than I am experiencing the pain of rejection. It wants every passing state to become your identity. But you are not every emotion that enters you. You are the awareness that notices it. This understanding becomes especially important when comparison appears. Comparison is one of the ego's favorite ways to create separation. It looks at another person's life and turns their joy into evidence of your failure. You may see someone who appears more peaceful, more loved, more certain, or more spiritually grounded. The mind may immediately ask why you have not arrived where they are. You may begin judging your own path, forgetting that you can only see the surface of theirs. Comparison takes you away from your own life. It persuades you to abandon the season you are in because another person appears to be living in a different one. But a garden does not criticize the seed because it has not yet become a flower. It does not tell winter that it should look like spring. Every stage has its hidden purpose. Roots often grow in darkness long before anything becomes visible. Perhaps the period you call being stuck is teaching you how to become still. Perhaps the loss you wish had never happened is revealing how deeply you can love. Perhaps the uncertainty you resist is loosening an identity that has become too small for the person you are remembering yourself to be. This does not mean you must pretend that every experience feels beautiful. Spiritual awareness is not the denial of pain. It is the willingness to meet pain without allowing it to close the heart. You may have lost someone, and the absence still follows you through ordinary moments. A song, a room, or a familiar scent may suddenly open the grief again. The ego may tell you that you should be over it by now. It may compare your healing with someone else's and turn sorrow into shame. But grief has no fixed calendar. Love leaves an imprint. The new perspective is not to rush yourself beyond the loss, but to bring compassion to the one who is living through it. You cannot give yourself peace by declaring war on your sadness. You cannot heal by resenting the pace of your own healing. Sometimes the most spiritual response is simply to sit beside what hurts and say, you are allowed to be here. In that acceptance, pain begins to lose its sharpest edge. It no longer has to shout to be acknowledged. The same is true of anger. Anger may arise when a boundary has been crossed, when a need has been ignored, or when an old wound has been touched. The ego may either cling to the anger or condemn you for feeling it. Awareness does neither. Awareness asks what the anger is trying to reveal. Perhaps beneath it is sadness. Perhaps beneath it is fear. Perhaps it is showing you where you have remained silent to keep someone else comfortable. When you listen without judgment, anger can become information rather than identity. Then you are free to respond instead of react. A reaction comes from the wound demanding immediate relief. A response comes from the deeper self making room for truth and love at the same time. You may still speak honestly. You may still leave a harmful situation. You may still create distance. Inner peace does not require you to tolerate disrespect. Peace is not passivity. It is the absence of hatred within your action. This may be one of the most difficult lessons for the ego to accept. The ego believes that letting go means losing, that forgiveness means weakness, and that peace means allowing others to escape responsibility. But your inner state is not a courtroom. You do not have to keep someone imprisoned in your thoughts to prove that what happened was wrong. Each time you rehearse the injury, your body lives through it again. The person may be far away, yet the past continues speaking through your nervous system, your relationships, and your expectations. You may find yourself withholding trust from someone who never harmed you because you are still protecting yourself from someone who did. You may struggle to receive love because an old experience taught you that love always leaves. This is how the past gives away what it still carries. Awareness interrupts that inheritance. It asks you to notice when yesterday is speaking through today. It invites you to pause before offering an old wound to a new moment. You might ask, is this person truly threatening me? Or is this situation awakening a memory? Am I responding to what is happening or to what I fear will happen again? There is no shame in discovering that an old wound is still active. The discovery itself is a form of awakening. You cannot transform what you are unwilling to see. And as you see more clearly, you begin to understand that the ego's patterns were often attempts to protect you. The people-pleasing, the overthinking, the control, the comparison, and the emotional walls may have helped you survive moments when you did not yet know another way. You do not need to hate these patterns. You can thank them for trying to protect you while gently recognizing that they no longer need to lead your life. This is the movement from confusion into awareness, and from awareness into understanding. You begin to see that your suffering was not proof that you were broken. It was often the result of searching outside yourself for a safety that could only become stable when discovered within. The world may still be unpredictable. People may still disappoint you, but you are beginning to remember a presence within you that does not disappear when circumstances change. And as that presence becomes more familiar, another question begins to arise. If fear is not your deepest nature and the ego is not your truest identity, then who are you beneath all the defenses you have learned to carry? Who are you beneath all the defenses you have learned to carry? Perhaps you are not the fear that keeps asking what might go wrong. Perhaps you are not the resentment that remembers every wound. Perhaps you are not the role you have performed for others, the image you have protected, or the story you have repeated about why peace is unavailable to you. Beneath all of that, there may be a quieter presence, a presence that does not need to compete, control, or prove itself, a presence that has never been damaged by the opinions of others. You may have lost contact with it, but you have not lost it. Returning to your true self is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering what existed before fear told you who you had to be. Think of the ocean beneath a storm. At the surface, the waves may be restless and violent. The wind may create confusion in every direction. Yet deep below, the water remains still. The storm is real, but it is not the whole ocean. Your thoughts and emotions are like those waves. They rise, change, and pass. Your deeper awareness is the stillness beneath them. When you live only at the surface, every disappointment feels like a threat to your identity. But when you begin returning to the depth within you, you can experience the waves without believing that you are the storm. This return often begins with forgiveness. Forgiveness may be one of the most misunderstood spiritual practices. It does not ask you to say that what happened was acceptable. It does not require you to invite harmful people back into your life. It does not erase the wisdom you gained or the boundaries you now need. Forgiveness is the willingness to stop using the past as a place to live. Imagine carrying a heavy stone because someone placed it in your hands years ago. At first, you may hold it because you are angry. You want the weight to prove that the injury mattered. You believe putting it down would mean the person has escaped responsibility. But as time passes, the person who gave you the stone may no longer be present. You are the one still carrying it. Your hands ache. Your body becomes tired. The stone enters every relationship because you no longer have empty hands with which to receive something new. Forgiveness is not saying the stone was harmless. It is simply deciding that you no longer wish to carry it. You may begin by noticing what happens in your body when you remember the person or the event. Perhaps your chest tightens. Perhaps your jaw becomes tense. Perhaps an old conversation begins replaying in your mind. Instead of judging yourself, you can meet this reaction with compassion. You might quietly say, "This pain has lived within me for a long time. I am willing to stop feeding it. I am willing to choose peace, even if peace arrives slowly. Forgiveness is rarely one dramatic moment. It may be a choice you make many times. The memory returns, and you release it again. The anger rises, and you breathe through it again. Each release creates a little more space within you. Eventually, you may realize that the person you most need to forgive is yourself. You may carry regret over choices you made when you were afraid, lonely, or unaware. You may criticize yourself for staying too long, leaving too soon, trusting the wrong person, or failing to speak when your heart knew the truth. You may look back with the awareness you have now and judge the person you were then. But the person you were then did not possess the understanding you have now. A seed cannot be blamed for not yet being a tree. You acted from the level of awareness available to you in that moment. This does not mean avoiding responsibility. It means allowing responsibility to become wisdom rather than punishment. You can acknowledge what you would do differently without declaring yourself unworthy of love. You can repair what can be repaired. You can apologize when an apology is needed. Then you can stop demanding that guilt become a permanent identity. Self-forgiveness creates the inner kindness you need in order to offer kindness to others. When you no longer need to hide from your own imperfections, you become less threatened by the imperfections of those around you. From forgiveness, the journey moves naturally toward surrender. Surrender does not mean giving up on life. It means giving up the exhausting belief that life must obey your plans before you can trust it. There may be something you have been trying to force, a relationship you are afraid to lose, an answer you believe must come soon, a future you have imagined so clearly that any other path feels like failure. You may be holding the outcome so tightly that there is no room for life to surprise you. You can still have desires. You can still take meaningful action. The difference is in the energy beneath the action. Action rooted in fear says, "This must happen or I will not be whole." Action rooted in intention says, "This is what my heart is drawn toward, and I will move with love while remaining open to a wisdom greater than my own." Intention is not control. It is direction without desperation. A river moves toward the ocean, but it does not insist on traveling in a straight line. It bends around rocks. It passes through narrow places. Sometimes it moves quickly, and sometimes it becomes almost still. Yet it does not doubt its nature. It continues flowing. Your life may also contain bends you did not choose. A loss may redirect you. Aging may change what your body can do. A dream may dissolve. A relationship may end. A period of uncertainty may remove the familiar signs you use to guide yourself. The ego calls every unexpected turn a problem. The deeper self may see it as part of the journey. This does not mean every painful experience was sent to teach you a lesson. It simply means you can allow every experience to deepen your awareness rather than harden your heart. Perhaps you are facing a season in which you do not know what comes next. The mind wants a complete map. It wants guarantees. But life often gives only enough light for the next step. Trust begins when you stop demanding to see the entire path. You might ask yourself, what would love choose in this moment? Not next year, not for the rest of your life, just in this moment. Love may choose rest. It may choose an honest conversation. It may choose silence instead of another argument. It may choose to walk away from what repeatedly harms you. It may choose to remain patient while an answer is still unfolding. Love is not always soft in appearance. Sometimes love establishes a boundary. Sometimes it disappoints someone who benefited from your lack of one. Sometimes it asks you to stop rescuing another person so they can discover their own strength. But love does not act from the desire to punish. It seeks truth without hatred. When you begin living from this place, your relationships may change. Some people may feel closer to you because you are no longer hiding. Others may resist because they were comfortable with the version of you who always said yes. This can feel lonely at first. You may wonder whether honoring yourself is costing you connection, but connection built on self-abandonment was never the peace your soul was seeking. The true self does not need to reject others, but it no longer rejects itself to keep them. Gradually, you begin to discover that love is not something you must chase. It is a quality of consciousness you can bring to what is in front of you. You can bring love to the way you speak to yourself in the morning. You can bring love to the meal you prepare, the stranger you encounter, the aging body you inhabit, and the silence that once frightened you. When love becomes a way of seeing, ordinary life becomes sacred. You may notice sunlight resting on a wall. You may hear the wind moving through leaves. You may feel gratitude for one quiet breath. These moments do not solve every problem, but they return you to the present, where the source is always available. The source may be understood in many ways. You may call it God, divine intelligence, love, spirit, or the life that moves through all things. The name matters less than the recognition that you are not separate from it. The same intelligence that opens a flower and guides a bird through the changing seasons is also alive within you. You do not have to earn your connection to it. You can only forget or remember. Fear creates the experience of separation. Love restores the experience of belonging. When you believe you are separate, you approach life like an empty container begging to be filled. You seek people who will prove your value. You cling to outcomes that promise security. You become frightened by anything that threatens the identity you have built. When you remember your connection to the source, you begin approaching life from fullness. You still appreciate love from others, but you are no longer asking them to become the source of your existence. You can receive affection without depending on it to define you. You can experience rejection without rejecting yourself. This is what it means to give from what you truly have. You have compassion because you have learned to sit gently with your own pain. You have patience because you no longer demand that every season change immediately. You have forgiveness because you understand the burden of carrying resentment. You have peace because you have stopped asking the world to remain still. And when fear returns, as it sometimes will, you do not need to believe you have failed. Spiritual awareness does not mean never feeling afraid again. It means remembering that fear is a visitor, not your identity. You can welcome the frightened part of yourself without giving it control. You can place a hand over your heart and listen. You can ask what it needs. Often, beneath the fear is a simple longing to know that you will not abandon yourself. The more faithfully you remain present with yourself, the less desperately you need others to remove your discomfort. This does not make you distant. It makes your love cleaner. You can be with another person without silently asking them to repair every wound. You become like a lamp that is connected to its own source of light. You do not chase away darkness through force. You simply remain connected, and the light naturally extends beyond you. This is the transformation that has been quietly waiting beneath your struggle. You are not being asked to create love from nothing. You are being invited to remove what has blocked its expression. And as forgiveness clears the past, surrender opens the future, and awareness brings you back to the present. You may discover that the peace you wanted to receive from life has been waiting for permission to flow through you. The peace waiting to flow through you does not require a perfect life. It does not ask that every relationship be healed, every question answered, or every fear removed. It begins in smaller and quieter ways. It begins in the moment you stop searching outside yourself for what can only be awakened within. You may still experience difficult days. You may still feel disappointment, grief, uncertainty, or anger. But now you can meet these experiences differently. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you may gently ask, "What is this moment revealing within me?" Perhaps it is revealing a need for rest. Perhaps it is showing you an attachment you are ready to release. Perhaps it is inviting you to forgive, to speak honestly, or to stop abandoning yourself for approval. Awareness does not remove every challenge, but it changes the place from which you meet the challenge. You might begin each day with a few moments of stillness. Before reaching for the phone, before entering the noise of the world, you can simply sit and notice your breath. You do not need to force the mind to become quiet. You can allow thoughts to pass while remembering that you are the awareness, observing them. In that stillness, you might ask, "What am I carrying today?" If you notice fear, you can meet it with kindness. If you notice resentment, you can become willing to release a small part of it. If you notice the need to control, you can soften your grip and return to the present moment. This daily pause can become a way of tending your inner garden. You are not trying to make every flower bloom at once. You are simply watering what you wish to grow. Gratitude can also help you return to what is already present. Gratitude is not pretending that everything is easy. It is the willingness to notice that even in an unfinished life, something sacred remains. You may feel grateful for one breath, one person who listened, one lesson that made you wiser, or one quiet moment in which you remembered yourself. These small recognitions shift your attention from what is missing to what is alive, and what you give attention to begins to shape what you carry. Forgiveness can become another gentle daily practice. You may not be ready to release an entire wound at once, but perhaps you can stop rehearsing it for one morning. Perhaps you can choose not to have the same argument in your mind again tonight. You can remind yourself, I do not forgive because the past was acceptable. I forgive because my peace is valuable. You may also practice forgiving yourself. When you notice an old mistake, you can replace punishment with understanding. You can ask what the experience taught you and how you wish to live differently now. The past cannot be rewritten, but your relationship with it can be transformed. Throughout the day, you may pause before responding to others. You can notice whether your words are coming from fear or from love. Are you trying to control, defend, impress, or punish? Or are you speaking from honesty, compassion, and self-respect? You will not always respond perfectly. That is not the purpose. The purpose is to become more aware of the source from which you are giving. Some days you will give patience. Other days you may need to give yourself space. Sometimes love will appear as warmth and understanding. Sometimes it will appear as a clear boundary. What matters is that you are no longer offering the world only the contents of your wounds. You are learning to offer what has been cultivated through awareness. You can also practice trust. At the end of the day, you might imagine placing every unresolved problem into a river. You have done what you can for now. You do not need to carry every uncertainty into the night. Let the river take what you cannot solve today. Trust does not mean knowing that everything will unfold exactly as you prefer. It means believing that you can remain connected to your deeper self even when life unfolds differently. This is inner freedom. It is the freedom to love without demanding ownership, the freedom to forgive without denying the truth, the freedom to care without losing yourself, the freedom to experience fear without building your life around it. You may slowly realize that you were never empty. You were simply disconnected from the source of your own peace. The love you were seeking was not absent. It was hidden beneath self-rejection. The peace you wanted was not far away. It was covered by resistance, judgment, and the belief that someone else had to change first. As these layers begin to soften, you remember something ancient and simple. You are already part of the life you have been searching for. The same presence that moves through the ocean, the trees, and the stars is moving through you now. You do not need to become worthy of that connection. You only need to stop forgetting it. And from that remembrance, you begin to give differently. You give love because you are learning to live in love. You give peace because you have stopped fighting yourself. You give compassion because you have met your own pain with tenderness. You no longer wait for the world to fill you before you offer something beautiful. You return to the source within, and what is true begins to flow naturally. Perhaps today you can ask yourself one quiet question. What do I wish to give to the world? And am I willing to cultivate it first within me? Share your reflection in the comments if you feel moved to do so, and subscribe for more quiet spiritual journeys into awareness, healing, and inner peace. May you remember that you are not becoming someone new. You are returning to what has always been within you. May you release what no longer belongs in your heart, and may the peace you have been waiting to receive become the peace that now flows through you.